Ian looked over his datapad while he waited by the holographic communication sphere, preparing to deliver his report to Thon High Command. He meticulously inspected his uniform to ensure it adhered to regulations. As the communication sphere flickered to life, he snapped to attention and saluted the Supreme Commander, the 5 Grand Admirals, and the 5 Grand Stratos of the Army seated around the table. Inquisitor Egan, Senior Intelligence Officer, Rick Sector Command, reporting as ordered, Ian announced, striving to mask his nervousness while presenting before the High Command of the Thrin Empire. "Be seated, Inquisitor," rumbled the Supreme Commander's voice over the holographic sphere's audio device. "Yes, sir," Ian replied, taking a seat in front of the sphere. The Supreme Commander continued, "We called this meeting to discuss an intelligence report sent by you and flagged as high priority. There are some on the Council who doubt the veracity of this report." Grand Admiral Island interjected, "Do not take this as a slight on your abilities, Inquisitor Ian, but the High Command needs to clarify this report. We did not think it possible for the humans to field the numbers you reported. If these numbers are accurate, then it will require shifting a significant portion of our fleets and army units." The Supreme Commander spoke again. "We have also had reports of a buildup in the TK system, but it is much smaller than the one in your report. Explain how this intel was gathered, and provide an updated report on human activity in the Sumac system." "I hear and obey, Supreme Commander," Ian replied. "For the past 3 Perics, we've observed a decrease in the usual communications and ship traffic into the system. We ran diagnostics on our equipment and found no issues," Ian began. "It might not sound like much, but the source of the missing signals caught our attention." Ian paused to bring up an image in the holographic sphere before continuing. "This is a graph showing the sources of the signals we monitor. If you look at the last source, it's the radiation signature given off by the reactors on the civilian mining outpost. We use that signature as a baseline for the radiation output and natural signals given off by the system star and orbiting bodies." He pointed to the time frame that coincided with 3 Perics ago. The radiation signatures spiked and then began to fade until they were gone. Checking against the other part of the baseline showed no stellar activity to cause that. Grand Stratos Tickus asked, "Couldn't they have just shut down the reactors or had an accident?" Ian brought up another image. "Human energy sources are far inferior to our own and give off more signatures. This graph shows the shutdown of the reactors in the Eclairon system just prior to our," he trailed off, ensuring the gravity of the situation was fully understood by the Council. "During the invasion, they were attempting to evacuate all their assets before we arrived. As I mentioned, their energy sources are inferior to ours and take 5 times longer to shut down." Igan displayed another graph. "This shows the signature of a reactor we destroyed during our invasion of the Neeg system. At the moment of destruction, there was a massive burst of radiation. None of these signatures appear in our monitoring of the Sumac system." Ian pointed to the radiation spikes. "These match previous readings of new reactors being brought online. Either the humans made a massive technological leap to improve their reactors, or they were masking the signal somehow. Just a few rotations ago, we noticed some of our intelligence assets, both living beings and electronics, began going dark. This piqued our curiosity, so we sent some of our cloaked reconnaissance probes to the system. When we received no signals back, we sent another probe, and then a third with orders to return after 1 planetary rotation. Once the probe left the system, we started receiving information. The other 2 probes were still active, but unable to transmit out of the system. The humans found a way to block all artificial signals from leaving, even restricting communications between our probes within the system. This explained why our assets went dark, but we still didn't understand the reason behind it. Therefore, we sent the probe back to change the orders of the other 2 probes, so they would leave the system at preset times and transmit their data." Ian switched the image to one of the Sumac system, showing the probe locations. "We managed to get 1 probe close enough to start receiving information from our assets on the station. The next intelligence dump revealed increased human activity and new construction on several habitable moons. It also provided initial intelligence on the gathering fleet. Initially, there were only a dozen warships, 3 capitals and their support ships, but dozens more arrived with each Peric. One of my remaining assets on the station also reported a significant number of ground forces arriving and being transported to new bases. So far, It has identified the insignia of no less than 8 divisions. Previous intelligence reports indicate that a human division consists of 25,000 soldiers. Ian switched to a new screen. We received another probe signal before this meeting with updated information. We estimate the human fleet now consists of over 1,500 warships and several hundred other types of ships, mostly troop transports. Over 500 of these are capital ships. We have counted 5 supercarriers, 100 standard carriers, 200 battleship-class ships, and about 200 heavy cruisers. The rest of the fleet is a mix of sub-capitals that humans classify as light cruisers, frigates, destroyers, and corvettes. Our current estimate is that one supercarrier contains 500 strike craft, and carriers carry up to 150. The best estimate is 17,500 strike aircraft, though we do not know how many are for space combat and how many are assigned for planetary support. The asset also updated human ground force numbers. 3 more divisions have arrived, 1 artillery, 1 of armored vehicles, and 1 mech. We do not know their actual strength. The current total number of ground forces is at least 200,000 troops. The members of the High Council looked alarmed. The Supreme Commander asked, "Do you have any idea of their target?" "We picked up increased reconnaissance activity in the balloon system," Ian replied. Our asset also gathered bits and pieces of information to support that theory. The room was tense as one of the Grand Stratos exclaimed, "The balloon system makes no sense. It has no strategic value." He was a recent addition to the High Council, and Ian had forgotten his name. Before Ian could respond, Grand Admiral Elon interjected, "Not by itself, but it makes a good stepping-off point to other systems that would serve as effective staging grounds to then target 7 significant worlds, both militarily and industrially." At this revelation, most of the High Command members looked either concerned or alarmed. The Supreme Commander asked about the buildup in the TK system. After consulting with the Intel staff monitoring the TK system, "We believe it's a distraction to keep our forces occupied in that area," Ian replied. Discussion with my superiors reached the same conclusion. Grand Admiral Elon inquired, "And why does intelligence come to this conclusion?" Ian changed the image in the globe to show scans of the TK system. The naval and army forces are much smaller, maybe 150 ships of all types near the 4th planet starbase, including troop transports, Ian explained. Their attempts at preventing our reconnaissance of the system are not as effective as in the past. We think they want us to see them. They are presenting a force dangerous enough to take the Jacker system, but not against the forces we have in the area. Meanwhile, the human force building in the Sumac system outnumbers our total force in that sector 4 times over. Ian waited quietly as the High Command deliberated. The Supreme Commander then addressed Ian. "Normally, someone of your security level wouldn't be informed of these plans ahead of time, but we've determined this situation requires immediate updates on the intel. So you, and only you, will report directly to us, not through your superiors. First, we are going to transfer the 1st, 3rd, and 8th fleets from the Jacker and Lanari systems to the Sumac system. 2 more fleets will come from a more secure sector of the Empire. 5 of the 6 army groups in the Jacker system will be relocated as well." Admiral Elon added, "We will be taking an indirect route to avoid detection. Besides monitoring the human buildup and notifying us when their offensive commences, you are to look for any sign of detection of these movements." The next few rotations were busy for Ian, updating the latest intel on the human buildup and ensuring the movement of Thon forces wasn't detected. After discussions with High Command about the human forces attacking the Jacker system, it was determined to be part of their misdirection ploy. Therefore, no reinforcements were sent there. Even after the Jacker system fell and the 5th Fleet, along with the army guarding it, was destroyed, the High Command still waited and fortified the Sumac system. 1 rotation, the forces in the Sumac system vanished. All the humans and assets were gone, and the system was empty. It was rigged to explode after Thon forces entered the station, killing 2 ships and 383 ground troops. All other human structures exploded right after that. The High Command assumed the humans discovered the forces waiting for them and withdrew entirely to avoid a Thren force counterattack. Ian was promoted for his actions during that period, congratulated for helping prevent the human offensive from succeeding with his work. 3 revolutions of Thon Prime later, Ian was captured by the humans when the Ronic sector fell. As a high-value prisoner, he was taken to the human homeworld for imprisonment and frequent interrogation. He assumed humans used tactics and interrogation as brutal as Thren interrogators did, and after minimal resistance, he began freely providing information. After thoroughly reviewing all of his communications with Thren High Command throughout his career, Ian decided to take the risk and ask the question that had troubled him since the humans abandoned the Sumac system. "May I ask a question, Colonel Adams?" Ian inquired. "You may," the colonel replied. "Thank you. Several years ago, your invasion forces in the Sumac system vanished within a matter of days," Ian continued. "Where did they go? We never saw some of the divisions our spy reported in action afterward, and we didn't notice a buildup in other areas that matched the number of ships." The colonel looked at his comrade, then remarked, "Not like he's going to escape and tell his buddies, right?" The lieutenant colonel responded, "No, I think it's safe to tell him. Besides, we've been eager to brag about it to someone outside the loop." Colonel Adams returned his attention to Ian, grinning. "They never existed, or at least most of them didn't." Ian was perplexed. "What do you mean?" The lieutenant colonel explained, "We took a strategy from a major conflict on Earth, long before we ever sent humans into space. It was a deception to pin down enemy forces at the wrong location, preventing them from defending against the true invasion force. Your people even thought the real invasion was a feint, just as you did." Ian looked horrified. "But I saw the images of all the ships myself, and my assets saw the unit patches." Colonel Adams laughed and clarified, "The ships were either empty hulls, some with engines just to appear as though they had arrived, or disguised civilian ships bringing in disassembled parts to build more fake warships." "And the troops?" Ian asked. The lieutenant colonel responded, "That was only a couple of companies of non-combat personnel. We knew about your spy. The Akiri have always been terrible at distinguishing humans. It was just the same 300 troops changing uniforms or division patches and boarding the station again. The actual unit never had any patches or identifying marks. We were designated the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, named after the original unit that handled the deception." Ian, feeling deceived, said, "I was fooled by you. My entire career was built on a lie, and I never figured it out." Colonel Adams replied, "It's probably better you didn't, or they might have imprisoned you." Looking miserable, Ian responded, "I would have probably been executed." With that realization, he was suddenly very glad he never discovered the truth during his time as a prisoner of the humans. If High Command had ever found out, gazing at the two humans, Ian accused, "You humans are sneaky bastards." Simultaneously, they both responded, "Thank you," as if accepting a compliment.